Hi traders, in this lesson I'm going to be showing you the fundamental concepts that you need to know regarding alerts in PineScript. So there are two ways to trigger alerts in PineScript. Both ways depend on Boolean triggers, so true or false triggers. If the trigger is true, an alert is fired. If it is false, no alert is triggered. So for today's example, we're going to keep it extremely simple. We'll cover practical alerts for things like setup detection, indicator conditions, that sort of thing in future lessons. For now, I'm just going to give you an overview of the basic functionality of alerts. So to do that, we're going to create a really simple alert condition. For this lesson, we're going to detect higher closes and lower closes. So HC is going to stand for higher close, and that's just going to check, does the current bar close higher than the previous bar's high? And then lower close is the same, but the opposite. Does the current bar close lower than the previous low? And this is the first time you're seeing the greater than and less than operators. In a future lesson, in the next section, we'll cover all of the different math operators and PineScript operators we have to work with. Don't worry about that for now. Basically, today we're just dealing with two Boolean variables, high close, lower close. If the current bar closes higher than the previous high, high close is set to true. Otherwise, it's set to false. And the same for lower close, but the opposite. It needs to close lower than the previous bar's low. And so now we have two different ways we can trigger alerts with these variables. The first way is to use the alert function. The second way is to use the alert condition function. And I'll go over the differences now. So first of all, let's use the alert function. The way this works is an alert function triggers an alert as soon as it is called. So, for example, if we check if HC is equal to true, fire our alert. And this alert function takes two parameters, message, which is a string, and frequency, which is an inbuilt variable or built-in variable. So we have three options here, once per bar close, and both of these options basically. So if we set this to once per bar close, this alert will only fire if the current bar closes as a higher close bar. And the message can be anything. So we could make our string anything. I'm going to say here that this bar closed higher than previous bar. And then I'm going to add a colon on the end. And then I'm going to add on the current closing price of the bar to our alert. So to do that, we need to use the toString function because you cannot add a number directly to a string, and we need to use the str namespace here. We'll go over namespaces in a future lesson, but we need to say str.toString and then pass in our number, and this will convert the current closing price into text, into a string. And so when we get a higher close bar that closes, so our alert frequency is set to once per bar close. If we get a higher close bar, an alert will be fired with this text. So that's one way we can trigger alerts. It's quite simple, really. And now you don't need to specify these parameters here. The function will assume that the first parameter you give it is a string. So we could get rid of message equals. And it will also assume that the next parameter will be a alert frequency. So we can get rid of that. So we have our alert function triggering with a string argument and a frequency argument only on high close bars. Then we could do the same for if lower close. I could copy this string, paste it in there, change that to lower. And now we've got an alert firing on a lower close candle. And just to demonstrate that we can do it, let's change this to frequency once per bar. So this will not wait for the bar to be confirmed. It won't wait for the bar to close. So that's one way to fire alerts, and it's my preferred way to trigger alerts in my scripts. But there is also another option here, and that is the alert condition function. So this alert condition function cannot be placed in an if statement. It needs to be in your main script's scope. So it can't be in an if statement. It needs to be in your main script's sort of body of text. So it needs to be checked on every single bar on your chart. And this function takes 3 parameters instead of 2. The first is the condition, the Boolean condition to trigger the function. So in this case, if we wanted to trigger an alert for higher closes, we would pass in HC, comma. That's our condition. If HC is true, then the alert will fire. And then we have our title. So here I'm going to say higher close alert. And then we have our message. So for this, I'm just going to say the same thing here. This bar closed higher than the previous bar. Let's save the script and make sure that compiles. And there we go, no problems there. Now how this will work is on our real-time bar, on the current bar on our chart, this alert condition function will check is HC true? If it is, then fire an alert with the title, higher close alert, and the message, this bar closed higher than the previous bar. Now, there are a couple of differences between these functions. The first important one is that we cannot just add on our closing price as a string here, the same way we can with this alert function. If I save this script now, we will get an error. Cannot call alert condition with argument message equals, and then our series string. So a series string just means a string that can change based on certain conditions. So the closing price can obviously change at any time. The alert condition function does not accept any parameter that can change at any time. It needs a constant string, meaning a string that never changes, such as this right here. The only exception with this is that we can use placeholder tags. So if I come up to the alert button here and click on that, and I scroll down to the bottom here, you can see this text here. You can use special placeholders such as close, time, plot zero, etc. If you click on this little question mark button here, you can see all of the different placeholders we can use in our alerts. And there are quite a few of them. When we are using the alert condition function, the placeholder tags are the only way to put in variables that change. So for example, if we wanted to put in the closing price, we would need to do 2 curly brackets and then write close and then 2 close curly brackets. This placeholder would be replaced by TradingView when the alert fires with the current closing price. So now if I save the script and we come up to the alert button and I select our script alerts, if I click on this little drop down box here, you'll see that we have our any alert function call as an option. That is this function here. So we could set up an alert so that either of these get fired, or we can select our higher close alert, which is our alert condition. So if I click on that and I say once per bar and turn off my webhook. We'll cover webhooks in a future lesson. Don't worry about them for now. But if I just set an alert as this is right now, I've set it to once per bar. Because the current bar's price is greater than the previous bar's high, this alert should fire immediately. So let me click create. We'll wait for price action to move. As soon as price action moves, there we go, our alert is fired. So you can see when I hover over that alert, it says this bar closed higher than the previous bar, and then it has the closing price. So our little placeholder here was replaced with the closing price. You could also put in the ticker if you wanted to. So now if I save the script and set a new alert and select high close alert and click create, now we have a new alert that fired, and you can see that it now says the market, the ticker ID of the market that fired this alert. So that's how you pass in dynamic information into your alert condition functions. The alert function, on the other hand, is a lot easier to pass in information. So this particular function is definitely the preferred method for dealing with third-party APIs. For example, for trade automation using TradingView alerts, you would be better off using this alert function if you can. This alert condition, on the other hand, is great for manual alerts because you can give each alert a title. So for example, I could copy this, paste it down here, change this to lower close and change the condition to our lower close variable. Change that to lower. So here's our lower close alert. And then let's say we want to merge both of these. So we want to say if we have a higher close or we have a lower close, then we have a HCLC alert. And then we could just say this bar closed higher or lower than the previous bar. Now if I save the script and we come up to the alerts dialog and select our script, when I click on this drop-down box, we have 3 different alerts to choose from here. We have a high close, lower close alert, high close alert, and lower close alert with their own titles. So this is really useful for setting manual alerts in your scripts. Say you have a script that is designed to help traders trade your script manually, and you want to detect things like a certain candlestick patterns or certain indicator conditions, that sort of thing. This is a great way to separate your alerts with a title to make it more intuitive for the user. Whereas this any alert function call will literally fire for any alert function call that we put in our script. Now, if I were to create this alert, nothing would happen because I've set my alert frequency to once per bar close. So we would have to wait for the bar to close higher than the previous bar for this to fire. Let me get rid of this close out of our alert frequency. So this should now fire immediately as soon as I set an alert on this any alert function call. So let me first click show pop-up and then click create. We'll see what happens. There we go. An alert just fired on euro dollar. It fired based on the any alert function call condition. And we get our text here that we wrote out here. So this bar closed higher than the previous bar, and then we have our bar price, our closing price. So for example, let's say we wanted to pass the current RSI value to our alert as well. We could replace this bar closed higher than the previous bar and then set the RSI value in there. So now it will tell us the current RSI value when we set our alert. So let me select alerts, leave that as it is, click create. There we have it. Now you can see our RSI value. Now there's a lot of decimal places here. I'll show you in a future lesson how you can truncate or cut excess decimal places off your alerts. But for now, that's not important. You can see the current RSI value over the 14 period is 68.62 or 63 if we round it up. And that's really all you need to know for alerts. We have these 2 methods for setting alerts. Both have their pros and cons. The pros for the alert function is that we can easily pass in values, so price values, indicator values, third-party syntax for sending your alerts to a service that automates your trades based on your alerts. If you're using a service like that, they will require a certain syntax for your alerts. So for example, you might need to say, set my stop loss to, and then in here you could set toString your stop loss price, and then you might need to put in a comma, take profit equals, and then put in your take profit price, etc. And then you could send this information to a third-party API using a webhook, using this. So for example, I've been using Pine Connector recently to automate some of my trading strategy scripts. If I send the right syntax in an alert message to this URL using the TradingView alert functionality, Pine Connector will automatically manage my trades for me based on the commands I give it in my alert message. And I can pass in my stop loss price, break-even distance, trailing stops, limit order entry prices, all that sort of thing, just using this technique that you see right here. So that'll do it for this particular lesson on alerts. This is the basic core functionality of alerts. We'll cover more detailed practical applications of this information in future lessons, especially when we get into setup, detection, and indicator conditions, that sort of thing. So I hope you found this lesson interesting, and I'll see you in the next one.